Thank you for clicking in too. Explore the far-reaching impacts of the choices we make, one conversation at a time. This is The Ripple Effect.
We have a very special guest today who has worn many hats in the education and the aerospace industry, from educator to Flagler School Board member for the last 24 years to executive director. Let's explore how Dr. Colleen Conklin merges her passion for both education and the aerospace industry. Dr. Conklin, welcome. Doctor, or Colleen, which do you prefer?
You can call me Colleen. That's absolutely fine.
Okay, so before, I don't want to interrupt you, but most of our viewers are going to want to know your background, where you're from, your education.
Sure.
I don't care anything about that. What I want to know, the only thing I want to talk about is drone pilots. So, but I know we can't do that, and we don't want to drone on about that.
Uh-huh.
Get it? Huh?
Okay.
But
Anyway, so let's start. Just can you give us a little background about yourself?
Sure. I actually moved back and forth. Actually, I came to Flagler County in the 70s, early 70s, when we had like two lights in Bunnell and one in Flagler Beach. And Palm Coast was a thought. It was just swampland. And kind of moved back and forth between here and New York. My parents had a bar and restaurant here called the Harbor Inn, which was under the old drawbridge in Flagler Beach. And my dad had a trucking company in New York City. So we moved back and forth quite a bit. I ended up graduating high school and college in New York, and then was a teacher in Washington Heights and in the South Bronx for about 10 years. Ended up going there after I had done a congressional internship. And God always has a funny sense of humor. On the exact same day I got offered the teaching job in the South Bronx, I got offered a congressional aides position in D.C. with the congressman that I had interned with. But it's amazing because the entire country is really being run by a bunch of 25 to 35-year-olds who came right out of school and go get a job on the Hill. So I really wanted to go into the trenches. I wanted to be able to speak from a place of experience and thought, DC's going to have to wait for another day. Loved my time teaching. My goal at the time was to be the youngest principal in New York City. But you get married, you plan to have a family, and you don't want to leave the house at 5 a.m. and get home at 7 o'clock at night. So I ended up moving, my husband and I at the time ended up moving here right next door to my mom and dad. And I started teaching in Bunnell Elementary School, where I had gone to school as a child. And things were, coming from New York City wasn't the greatest, but coming from there, looking at the curriculum, we had curriculum that was so outdated, zero technology. Our teacher salaries were literally, out of the 67 counties, we were like 62, I think. It was terrible. And decided to run for school board. I had just had my second son, and I often joke that I had baby brains, when I made the decision. Ran for school board. Didn't really think I was going to win, but I wanted to shine the light on those issues to kind of force them to be addressed. And I won, surprisingly, and spent 24 years, serving the community. I loved every minute of it. Okay, that is such a lie. I did not love every minute of it.
You didn't just win, though. You actually won everything, didn't you? Every precinct?
Yeah. So for each election, I won every single precinct in every single election, with the exception of my last one. I think I lost 3 precincts by like a handful of votes. But, which is, it was like one of the last Democrats standing in an elected seat. But I think that's really because I really didn't play party politics. I kind of was one of those people. I have a knack of, ticking off the Democrats and the Republicans, because I wasn't involved locally with the party, because I felt very strongly about the seat being a nonpartisan seat, and I took that very seriously. And I think in the last election in 2000 when I ran, I had somebody say to me, "You are absolutely the worst Republican I have ever met in my life." It's like, and I got
thank you.
I got a tickle out of that because they had no idea what party I was. And that was the point of it, right? They assumed because our numbers here in Flagler County are so tilted with a majority voters being Republican, but it was I know that the person saying it was trying to kind of be nasty about it, but for me I took it as a badge of honor in the sense that okay, she really didn't know what party I was, and that's the point of it. Nobody really should know what party you're on when you're sitting in an elected position on a nonpartisan board, in my opinion.
So having experience in New York and Palm Coast area, which do you prefer? Or what do you like about each?
I got to tell you something. I live in Flagler Beach. You could not give me a house for free up north right now. I love, I've seen the community change a lot. When I first got on the board, we had 6,000 students, and we have, almost 14,000. And to me, it's still got that feel for, especially in Flagler Beach, the small town USA. Although with all the development and the building and the clear cutting, I mean, it's heartbreaking when, you've grown up with these giant oaks and that's a whole nother topic we could probably get on.
Because I just got here, I don't have that experience.
Yeah.
I see it as, and when you come from Chicago or Detroit, it still seems like a small town.
Yeah.
I don't have that experience or that thought from before.
Well, it's funny because I went to FPC, right? The high school. And the high school at that time was 7th grade through 12th grade. And it was still the same to today, right? You had Bunnell, which was the west side, and the farmers and whatnot. And then you had Palm Coast, which was all the northerners, everybody from up north. And then you had the Flagler Beach folks, which were, the surfers, the beach, very eclectic kind of group of individuals. And it's still that way. I mean, it really is. If you think about it, it's still kind of that way.
I love Flagler Beach.
I'd
move there in a heartbeat.
My kids surf all over the world. My one son is in Indonesia right now, and the other one's home for a short period of time. But they will tell you that they have been to all sorts of places around the world, and that there is no place on the planet like Flagler Beach.
Well, it's not much of a surfing. There's not much of a break there. I see people messing around, but no big waves. That
I
I've
will
ever seen.
tell you, we have had like Frida Zamba was a world champion surfer. She came right out of Flagler Beach. We've got several. It's usually not talked about very much. There's still a lot of stigma and stereotypes around surfers, but these are premier athletes, and right now you've got a kid, Robbie McCormick. He's sponsored by O'Neill. He travels all over the world and surfs. You've got Ryan Huckabee that's on the World Surf League tour. We've got some phenomenal surfers that are doing incredible. We've got 2 kids out in Hawaii right now. My sons, they both have they shape surfboards for, they're entrepreneurs.
Did both your sons learn to surf here?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I just haven't been there that many times.
Yeah. Well, they say if you can surf the waves here, you can surf the waves anywhere. So if you go out to California, the Californians like big waves. But if they're small, they can't surf them.
Yeah.
So our kids can surf small, big. They can surf everything. So
with respect to the school board, going back to that,
yeah.
You left, and why did you leave? When did you leave, and why?
It was time. It was, I just retired there in November after 24 years, but it has gotten so ugly, to be frank, really nasty and ugly. And after the last election in 22, it was amazing to me what the PACs were able to get away with. For example, Trevor Tucker, longtime Flagler County generational resident, right? I don't think I know anyone that's a more conservative Republican than Trevor Tucker. And they, the PACs sent out mailers, calling him a rhino. I mean, just full of lies. And there's no accountability. It's like free reign. You can say what you want. You can put out mailers. You can put out ads. And I basically had people tell me from the Republican Party, not, for those of you, and I get you guys are kind of aware of politics here locally, but the Republican Party here in Flagler is splintered in many factions. And so, there are some that don't align with the traditional, I think, Republican Party. But no, I was basically threatened. If you run again, they're going to throw $150,000 into your race. And I just didn't want to end my career after 24 years with flyers full of lies, or I just felt like being on the board was becoming more of a distraction to the work of the board, if that makes sense, right? I was a little bit of a lightning rod simply because I was a minority voice, right? And after 24 years, sometimes you get tired of banging your head against the wall. Mm-hmm. So I think for the good of the school district, it was time. It was probably time.
So after 24 years, what did you feel you accomplished, and how do you see it different from when you started till now?
Well, of course, a lot changes over the course of 24 years, but I am proud to say that all of the things, that I first thought about running have been addressed. We have, curriculum that is very forward leaning. We were one of the first in the state to go to one-to-one initiative due to the half-penny sales tax that Flagler County residents support.
What is that exactly?
The half-penny helped provide all of our technology.
The one-to-one.
One-to-one is so that every student in Flagler County, I don't know if folks realize this, but every student gets a laptop, right? Or an iPad, right? So, and it's an Apple product. It's a good high quality product. But I'm always challenging our technology department that we've got tech money. Let's really blow it up, right? Let's get the handheld microscopes. Let's get all of the bells and whistles. So we're continuing to evolve in that. Our science labs really need to be world class. And so a lot of the things, salaries at one point in time before the governor kind of equalized the beginning teacher salary, we were within the top 6 salaries in the state. So the things that I wanted to address, I think I've been able to kind of continue to shine a light on. And a lot of it is doing just that as a board member. It's continuing to bring attention to issues, talking about issues, shining the light on them, because it's like anything else, right? What gets done, what gets measured, what gets done. So those are really important pieces. And I think, one of the challenges, and unfortunately I think it's going to get worse, is just the mental and emotional health of our students.
What do you mean by that?
It's hard to be a kid today. And I don't mean that like, safe spaces and all the rest of that. I'm not even talking about that. We're all around the same age, right? If you dealt with bullying, you got to go home. These kids don't get a break from the bullying. If they're being bullied, it's 24/7. Social media has just, like, if I had any advice to parents, do not get your kid a smartphone until they're 18. Don't. Just don't. Don't do it. Because really, truly, no matter how I want it, you can watch. You can really kind of, check out what your kids are doing and all the rest of that. But they emotionally and mentally, if they are connected to social media, there's no break. There's no disconnect. There's no downtime. So, if you need to call home, get a flip phone. And I mean, you got a laptop. If you're going to, do work, if you need to do work, do it. But I think we need to be more focused on creating socially, digitally responsible kids, because just some of the cases I've seen over the years where, a student is on the receiving end of that, it's just brutal. It's just brutal.
Where does Embry-Riddle come into this? How long have you been working for them?
So I've been at Embry-Riddle for almost 11 years now. And I lead their what's called the Gates Aerospace Institute. And we're kind of going through a reorg right now at the university. But I oversee a dual enrollment and what we call the Smarter Outreach Program. So Smarter is kind of a spin on STEM, if you will. It's space, manufacturing, aviation, robotics, technology at Embry-Riddle. And they are middle and high school courses, advanced courses in all of those subject areas.
So these are high school students that are taking classes at the college?
No, we're actually a different type of dual enrollment program. So we're what's called a concurrent enrollment. So most times when kids participate in dual enrollment, they have to leave their high school campus and travel to the local state college. We're a push-in model. So it actually happens on the campus of the high school during the regular school day. Sometimes the professors are the school district employees, and some of them are visiting professors. The biggest challenge is, especially right now with aviation, is finding qualified folks that can teach these subject matters. It is, we say it's hunting unicorns. Super challenging.
Now, you also have a school in Arizona?
Yep. The university has 3 campuses. They've got Prescott, Daytona Beach, and Worldwide.
Okay. Singapore?
Yep. They're in Singapore.
Okay. And so do they offer the same type of, you call it concurrent enrollment for the high schoolers as well?
Not yet.
Okay, so this is unique to Daytona.
Yeah, we are actually in about 200 and I think last year we ended the year about 218 schools or so, primarily in the state of Florida. We receive a grant in the state of Florida, so I would say about 90% of our programs are in the state of Florida. We have programs in Ohio, New Jersey, Illinois, and as a matter of fact, I leave tomorrow to go out to visit with a school in California who's probably coming on board.
And what kind of classes do you actually teach in this program? Do you have any that you can?
So let's just take like a typical track, right? So 9th grade would be an introduction course. We call that like no harm, no foul, because you got to remember a student is starting, when they do dual enrollment, their post-secondary transcript. So you don't want to hurt them. 9th grade, it's an introduction to, it's the journey of flight. We partner with Civil Air Patrol, and they get a nice taste of what it is. Kind of does a historical review, principles of flight, all that kind of stuff. And then kids can decide, this is something that I like or I don't like. And then in 10th grade, they can go into like what's AS 120. It's a 3-credit college class, and that is the introduction of aeronautical science. And then they follow that with drones, foundations of drones, and then flight. They do a year of flight because of the attendance requirements with the FAA, and that's 5 college credits. And then they'll follow.
Is that flight actually in the plane, or is that simulation?
It's preparing students for ground school. There's lots of simulation. We use a lot of simulation. Once our kids get through ground school, we have a lot of schools that actually then help connect their kids to local flight schools. We've got an outstanding program in Naples, Lely High School. Our professor there has probably pumped out in the last 5 years 40 pilots, 30 pilots before they graduate high school, because that's the secret sauce. If you're going to go into commercial space, commercial airline, and you want to study this, no matter if it's Embry-Riddle or you're going to Alabama or UND or any of the others, flight is a very expensive portion. So if you can go into a university with your private pilot license in hand, that's the key. Get that before you graduate high school. And then you go in, you get your certified flight instructor certificate, your CFI, and then you can work the flight line, right? You can get paid while you're earning your hours and building your hours and that kind of stuff.
So the program that you work with is a little different from the actual campus in Daytona. You're working with the high school students at the school, and you're saying that they can earn their privates and maybe go into Embry-Riddle,
Yes.
or go into Auburn or wherever
Right.
else they have aerospace programs.
Yep. I mean, I don't know if really people understand where we are as a global economy when it comes to aviation workforce needs. We are in the middle of a crisis. You have the mandatory retirement age for a pilot is 65, and the cliff has started, right? So the need for pilots is tremendous, and I think the average age right now is 51. So, we just don't have enough entering the pipeline.
Is it because they're not starting early enough?
I think now I will say this: over the last several years, it's gotten better. When I first started at the university, the salaries for a beginning pilot, like a regional pilot, was under 30. It was like 27,000. I was like, "Are you kidding me? How am I supposed to have a conversation with parents, right? When you're investing in this kind of an education, and that's the first start. That's the starting salary." I was floored. But it, the way it was explained to me, think of it almost like a medical residency. It's once you get past that point, the salaries then are exponential.
Well, hold on now. A medical residency starts in the low 50s. It's not in the high 20s.
Well, in the sense, I think it was shared with me. Think of the time frame, right? They're putting in their time with the smaller regionals and then moving up. But that's all changed dramatically now. Now the starting salaries are way up there, and you have airlines outbidding each other with signing bonuses and whatnot right now. So,
do you have any number on that?
The signing bonuses?
The general package number, a rough estimate.
Anywhere between 65 and up.
Okay.
And the biggest thing that's happening now is the compression time to make it to captain. So it used to be that if you went and you eventually got your way to one of the big guys, right, United or American or something, Delta, that it might take you 10 years to get in the captain's seat. All of that has been compressed because a lot of those folks retired or they're retiring. So now they're talking about the time to get into I don't know how I feel about this. It kind of freaks me out a little bit, but really truly to get into that captain seat now, that time has been compressed to almost 3 to 5 years.
Wow.
Well,
And I mean, when you're captain, you're well over 6 figures.
Yeah, but if the mandatory retirement is 65, it's either you're starting earlier or, like you said, you're shorting that captain's period to something less than 10 years. Otherwise, because it seems like a little young to be forced to retire.
Yeah, but it's the mandatory retirement age.
Right. So your career span has been kind of compressed, probably by about 7 years.
Right, and that's what's happening with the captains because they're retiring. Those slots are opening, right, at a faster rate because the folks that are in them are closer to retirement age.
Do you think the reason for this bidding war, as you mentioned, is an extension of the industry figuring out that, hey, we got a problem?
Oh, for sure. They've responded. The industry has responded with an increase in starting salaries, but also with the signing bonuses. So what the industry is faced with now is you've got kids that are like, okay, I'm gonna come to, JetBlue, and then they're supposed to show up the first day for JetBlue's training, but United outbid them for the signing bonus by $5,000. So what? I mean, you're a young person. What do you're going to follow the money. So instead of 10,000, you're going to go to another company that's offering you 15,000 or 20,000. So the companies are, they're struggling because they're having, they're starting training and they've got half the class that shows up basically.
And Embry-Riddle offers, I was online and I saw probably, you offer bachelor's graduate, even doctorates in many different, like the airline management and like airline engineering. But what I didn't see, maybe I just didn't wasn't looking close enough. Can someone go to Embry-Riddle and get into a program that pushes that's geared towards actually becoming a commercial airline pilot?
Oh yeah, that's what it is, 100%. So the kids that graduate from that program, that is their career goal, right? And you just reminded me of something. So in the concurrent enrollment program, we had our first, about a year ago, I want to say a year and a half ago maybe, our first doctorate student graduate with a doctorate degree in human factors. So she went through the high school program, she got her bachelor's, she stayed and got her master's degree, and she stayed and she got her doctorate. She's now working special program in the Air Force. Pretty amazing story. Another kid is finishing his doctorate and he's working at SpaceX right now. So just incredible opportunities. I think a lot of it is kids don't know what they don't know.
Right. And that's when you said that you actually are allowing high school students to get involved in this. They don't know, like you said, they don't know what they don't know. And so introducing them to this program, to this industry, they may figure out, hey, this is something I really want to do.
Oh, yeah.
And then by time, like you said, by time they're done with high school, they're not standing there thinking, okay, what do I want to do? They have that certificate, or they have that maybe they're privates, and they can move on from there.
No, you're exactly right. I had a young lady, she was a student at St. Augustine High School, come by my office at the university. She wanted a letter of recommendation for Southwest. She was applying for an internship. And, I was like, sit down, tell me your story. I love to hear the kid's story. How did you get involved? Especially our female students. And she said, well, it's a really funny story. I walk into the class at St. Augustine High School. I had signed up for cosmetology. I walk into the room and it is all boys. There's not one girl in the room. And she's like, I knew immediately I was in the wrong classroom. Well, they had screwed up her schedule. So teacher sends her down to guidance. Guidance is like, and anybody who works in a high school knows you're not getting your schedule changed immediately. It's going to take a week, maybe 2 weeks. So the guidance counselor is like, okay, sit tight. We'll get to you and we'll work on getting your schedule changed. It was about 2 weeks, a week and a half goes by. They go down to the room, pull her out, and they're like, okay, we got your schedule straightened out. You can start tomorrow. And she's like, I think I'm going to stick it out. I kind of like it. I think I'm going to do it. And she did it. She ended up getting her private before she graduated high school. She fell in love with flight. And I said to her, why in the world did you not sign up for the class? She's like, well, first of all, I didn't think I could handle the math. I didn't think I could just academically do it. And that, a lot of kids think that. But, it's a relevancy issue. Some students struggle with math because they can't see the relevancy in it, right? So when you're doing aviation math, it's different because you can see the relevancy. But she said, I just never thought that I could be a pilot. And she's like, and now I can't think of anything else in the entire world that I would want to be but a pilot. And if you think about that one experience, if she didn't accidentally step into that classroom, now there's nothing wrong with being a cosmetologist, nothing wrong with that at all, but it is a different life path. And it is a path that's not just going to impact her, but the trajectory of generations beyond her. And so, they just don't know what they don't know.
The Embry-Riddle goes back to, the 20s when they were, they were air carriers. And there's a whole long story. It's on your website. It's pretty interesting. And have you seen over the last 10 or your time with them, the participation in with females entering this industry? Because I was reading, it's like something in the high 30s now.
Well, for campus, yes, I've seen an increase. And, I would like to think our program has a little bit to do with that, right? We really push female participation in the middle school and the high school programs. And we see that when they matriculate to the university, we see the number of students that are coming from our program that are females. So we hope that we're helping push that number up. But yeah, for commercial pilots, it's females only make up 4% of the population. So it's super, super small.
Now, would it surprise you that I did a handful of researches on the internet, and I typed in top 15 aerospace colleges, and you, Embry-Riddle, Purdue, and Auburn were consistently always in that top 15.
Yeah.
That doesn't surprise you?
No. They used to call the university the Harvard of the skies. Some people like that on campus, some people don't. But they are definitely a leader in the aviation aerospace space.
So with this is Smarter something that you have to pay for in addition to costs?
So that is a totally separate program. That's a dual enrollment or an outreach program. So there's a small fee for students to participate in that outside of the state of Florida. And really it was created out of the recommendation or the request of school administrators because they wanted a program either in space or they wanted an aviation program, and they had a teacher that was a rock star in the classroom, maybe had a passion for aviation or had a passion for space, but they didn't have a master's degree. So if you're going to teach our courses for college credit, you have to meet the criteria as though you are stepping on the campus to teach it, which is a master's degree in field or 18 grad credits out of field or significant industry experience, right? So we really created those series of courses so schools could participate, students could be exposed, and we didn't have the barrier to credentialing, right, for dual enrollment.
Okay. What I'm asking is, like, you're saying that through Smarter, kids can go ahead and get all this additional training that works them towards getting their flight license and so forth before you actually going to college.
Yeah.
Do they have to pay for all this? Is there additional costs that they might have to?
No. So it depends on what state. So like in the state of Florida, no. The state of Florida, students do not, and families should know this, students, no matter if they're homeschooled, no matter what the circumstances, if they're in a public education setting, do not, by statute, pay for dual enrollment.
Wow. Well, my daughter grew up here and went to school here, and I knew nothing about this program,
Yeah.
so I feel like I missed an opportunity.
Well,
there.
and we have a lot of kids in Florida, in Flagler County, right, at Matanzas High School and at FPC, that will graduate with their AS degree, their Associate of Science degree from Daytona State, a week or two before they'll graduate from high school. And that number continues to grow. And we always are encouraging, parents, take advantage of that program because it's free. Students can get 2 full years of college out of the way. And that's transferable into any of the state college systems if they want. Or they could stay at Daytona State. Daytona State now has 4-year degree programs.
Yeah, my daughter's enrolled, and I knew about STEM. I tried to get her into STEM programs, but she was like, no, I'm not interested. But at least I got her into the college program.
Yeah.
So she's dual enrolled with that, but I didn't know anything about this Smarter program at all.
Yeah.
I never even heard of it.
Yeah. It's FPC has a flight and a drone program. And at Matanzas High School, they had a Homeland Security, and they're actually going through an instructor change right now. So I think they're looking at adding the drone piece too.
Okay, well, my daughter goes to Matanzas, so that's why she's probably not heard of it, and that's why she's not really interested in Homeland Security. So that's probably why she's not.
Yeah, and I think we had Colonel Jack Howell. He was a Palm City commissioner. But he was our professor. Amazing man. That'd be a fun interview for you.
So what do you think of STEM as a whole?
Oh, my gosh. If you look what's happening with AI, there is not one single part of our world that is not going to be touched by STEM. Like that is... And again... I think with hands-on labs and opportunities for kids to really be engaged, that's the way to go. The problem that we're having is finding people to teach those subject matters. So, flipping back to school board hat, I remember when my own sons were at FPC, they had a terrible time finding a chemistry teacher, right? What do you do in chemistry? Like you make stuff, do things, right? Like you do experiments, you do, I don't want to say blow stuff up, but you know what I'm saying, right? You do experiments, you do labs. And both of my boys, because there was this ongoing challenge of just finding chemistry teachers, didn't have the experience I would want them to have with chemistry, right?
So AI Leadership MIT, that's you. What is that? I saw that on your CV.
So I've actually been very interested in the ethics of AI. And I've been saying for a long time that we need to be having those kinds of conversations with our kids now, right? And it goes back to kind of being digitally responsible citizens, right? Because AI's here. AI is happening. I was really interested, like I said, in the AI ethics component and was thinking of designing a course around that. So MIT is a leader in their certificated work around AI and took a few of their courses. Fascinating. It was around AI and leadership. But really now I'm kind of looking at all of the tools that are available in AI, and how schools and educators are really going to kind of put these two worlds together. Because you have some teachers that look at it, right, and say, ban AI. I don't want any chat GTP. You're not going to do anything with AI in the classroom. I know, right?
I could put a whole paper together. I wish that was around when I was in college.
And I get it. I understand why teachers are frustrated with it. But we've got to teach kids how to use it, right? And it's not just about using AI to write a paper, right? There's so much more to what you can do with it, that those are the things we need to be teaching our students. Not, Flagler County was one of the first counties to have a policy around AI. And the school district last year, we started a task force to look at AI in an educational organization. So in other words, how is AI touching not just the technology department, but are there tools, AI tools, that food service can utilize to be more efficient, cost effective? Transportation, are there AI tools we're using or we could be using to be more efficient and effective for every department, right? Whether it's custodial, whatever it might be. What tools are there? What are we using? But what's coming in the future? And so the district put together a task force, and every area within the district is a part of that task force, in addition to, of course, teaching and learning, right? Because at some point, teachers are going to have to make friends with AI.
Do you feel that AI could at some point possibly become a teacher?
Here's the thing. No, I don't. The human aspect, if you look at some of the literature, they're saying as we look at a future AI workforce, one of the things that's going to become valuable is social and emotional intelligence, right? Somebody that can connect on a human level with another. And AI still can't do that just yet. Don't know where it's going, which is a little, it's a mix of excitement and, trepidation. But I don't think anything will ever replace the relationship between the student and the teacher. And that can either be a very inspirational and powerful relationship, or, just stop for 1 second. Do you have a favorite teacher that comes to your mind?
Yeah, of course. I'm pretty sure everyone has one teacher
Right?
they can remember.
Right.
Everyone that's,
Yeah.
The one that I remember from high school that was the best.
Right? And I can guarantee you don't you don't say that person was the best because of the subject matter they were teaching
No.
or the lesson they taught you on, algebra. It was because of the relationship. It was the connection, right? And we also probably all have had that relationship or that experience where we've had the worst teacher, right? But I don't think AI will ever take the place of that human connection. I really don't. I think it's a powerful tool in education, extremely powerful. Like, there are tools now where you can instantly translate, right? So that students who with other languages can hear the lesson, or you can modify a video. You guys probably all know about that. You have virtual avatars. You can change it into any language you want. But also, if a student is struggling with math, you can really, as a student, you can watch, repeat. You can have that AI help you break down, find out where you are missing, what's the gap that you have, and then help zero in. So there's so many powerful opportunities with AI that to be responsible, it's here. It's not going anywhere. So we have to figure out how to utilize it, build a relationship with the tools that are available to benefit kids.
Do you think it would be a benefit to people that have certain learning disabilities and so forth?
100%. I mean, I a lot of people don't know, when I was going for my doctorate degree, I was really challenged with taking the GRE. And I had kind of talked my way into my master's program because my superintendent was teaching it at City College, and I got that requirement waived. And I was really having a hard time. And I was challenged when I was in school, when I was younger. Kind of always chalked it up to moving a lot. But I went and had a full educational evaluation done. And turned out I was phonetically deaf, which made my horrific spelling make sense to me. I had ADD, which was off the chain, a short-term memory issue. But I had math dysgraphia. And so, similar to dyslexia, I would flip numbers a lot, calling the wrong number, or, going to the wrong street address, or I lucked out with you guys with the 6-6, so that was good. But I've had to adapt. And so I think of the AI tools. I struggled terribly with math, but if I had access to some of those tools, like reading is a challenge for me, but I am a voracious listener. I have, Audible. I listen to Audible all the time. I usually have 2 or 3 books going at the same time. We didn't have those tools. You know what I mean? Even summarizing. There's so many things out there for AI that I think could be a tremendous benefit to students. We just can't be afraid of it.
And what's the difference between, and we've said this both ways, the Gates Aerospace Institute and Embry-Riddle? Are they one and the same?
Yeah, so we are an institute within the university, and we're actually going through a little bit of a reorg right now, where the Gates will be the Gates Aerospace Career Academy, kind of focused on the dual enrollment piece, and then I'm kind of, they're folding in Worldwide Online under us, and the summer camps and outreach programs. So not sure what's going to happen with the institute, but as of right now, we are an institute within the university.
Okay. And what is the Golden Eagle team? Do you know what that is? I'm just going to read it because I was reading. It's called the Golden Eagle Flight Team. They won 36 consecutive regional championships. It sounds really impressive.
It is impressive. So the College of Aviation and the flight department, they have a flight team, and the flight teams compete in a variety of different things. But if it's the one I'm thinking of, it's probably for cross-country planning, and it's kind of a race, if you will.
Okay. And the reason I'm putting this out there, because as I was reading about Embry-Riddle, It was impressive, and the team also won 15 national SafeCon championships. I didn't know you guys build safes. That's even more impressive.
Well, I'm not even going to touch that one.
I wouldn't. He's got a weird sense of humor.
But no, it's an amazing place to work. It really is, and we have a phenomenal team. And aside from the flight and all the rest of it, we have a very large program called Sea Perch, which is an underwater robotics program, which is a lot of fun. And the kids build a system, and then they have to navigate it through an underwater obstacle course. It's a partnership with the Navy. It's a really neat program. So probably about over 7,000 kids participated in that last year. So I'm lucky to work at a place that is so focused on a particular topic. Yeah, I always laugh if you ever come to campus, and you're outside. I mean, it's right on the Daytona Beach Airport, right? So it always happens. If a flight is taking off or coming in for a landing, every kid on that campus stops and looks up at the sky, and then they start chatting about what plane it is. I mean, it's funny to see, but they're all so passionate about aviation, whether it's designing planes or flying planes or whatever it might be. It's pretty cool.
You have a master's in education.
Mm-hmm.
You have a doctorate in education.
Mm-hmm.
Where does aerospace come into this, and where does the drone pilot come into this?
So I always tell everybody I'm a wannabe for sure, right? I'm a wannabe aviator. I work with some of the most impressive folks with a background in aviation that would just blow your mind. I'm not worthy of dusting their shoes off, right? But when I came to the university, I came with an experience and background in program management. I had previously done kind of a dropout prevention program around the state with the Jobs for America's Graduates, Florida's graduates. And the management structure was very similar to what we do now. And a requirement for the job was to have a pilot certificate. And I don't have a pilot certificate. But I took a shot and applied, and the interview went well. So since then, I've done flight time. I've got about 12, 15 hours in my logbook.
Have you soloed?
No, not yet.
I have.
Yeah. I mean, I've taken off and landed in control, but not solo.
Did you break anything?
I didn't break anything. Thank God. But yeah. And then, of course, I would say the majority of our program is flight, but it's really, truly drones.
Yeah, and did you get your certificate
I got
at
my
Embry-Riddle?
Yeah, I got my certificate because I wanted to have it, basically because that was one of our stronger programs. And I would encourage anybody to do that. It's, it's a course of study. It's a lot of airspace and rules and regs. But to fly, you need to have it. Mm-hmm. I mean, you cannot just open a drone up out of a box and go fly it in the sky. You have to be licensed, and there's a reason for that. And most of our students get their Part 107, and they also get about 2 or 3 like small safety certifications in knowing how to fly a drone.
Can people take classes at Embry-Riddle if they just have a general interest in aviation?
I know through our professional programs we have courses open all the time. If you are talking specifically about flight,
they want to get their privates.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I think it's just degree seeking. But there's lots of you go to your local FBO, your local airport, and there's definitely opportunities for that.
Okay. How many people are actually in the GAI right now?
I would say, so I have about maybe 20 direct reports. Indirect, we have, I would say there's probably a total of, we just went through this, about 305. But those are teachers scattered all over the place, right? They're either doing dual enrollment, or they're doing a middle school or high school course, or they're doing C-Perch. And last year we hit about 15,000 students.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the majority of those in Florida, or are they in other places?
Florida.
Okay.
Yeah, majority in Florida.
Rapid fire is just asking some questions, and if you can give short answers, we're just going to throw a series of different questions to get those, key little things
Sure.
that work for you. What is your favorite aircraft model and why?
Oh, the Diamond at the university. They have a Diamond, and it's so
Actually, I got to fly
sleek.
one of those.
It's so nice.
Yeah.
It's sharp.
Okay, I don't know what that is.
Well, no, it's a type of plane. It's a manufacturer, I believe. That's the name of it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful plane.
It's a low wing, and but I remember when I was first getting my privates, I would, at the time, like 15 years ago, a flight hour was like $110.
Yeah.
Now it's not even anywhere near that.
Yeah.
Now I would go, and I was in Cleveland, so I would go to the airport and rent the plane there.
Mm-hmm.
And I could rent that Diamond for just like $120, $150.
Wow.
I know.
That's pretty good.
It was a 4-seater,
Ah,
and it was it's quite an experience.
yeah. Yeah, it's a beautiful plane. Most of the students you train, most anywhere, you're training on like a Cessna, which is a smaller plane.
Like a 152 type thing.
Yeah.
I've flown a 170.
Nice. You should get back in the air.
No. No. If I was to fly again, I would do I was thinking of doing a sailplane, like a glider.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have an engine, and it's less likely to fall out of the sky. You really have to work a crash of that thing.
Yeah. He's concerned.
Yeah.
What is the one book on leadership that changed your perspective of leadership?
It's so funny. It really is tried and true. It's Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I mean, I've read a ton of leadership books, but there's just nothing like those 7 principles, really, truly. Right.
They just knew what they were talking about in the past, huh?
Yeah, so there's been, like I said, there's Maxwell's got some good stuff out there, but really, truly, Stephen Covey's,
That's a good book.
it really is.
If you weren't in aerospace or education, what would you be in?
Oh, I would say maybe aerospace. I think engineering. I always joke about my mom and dad were off the boat from Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a 6th grade education, but we're both very successful entrepreneurs, right? But they didn't have that STEM background. And when I was younger, I mean, it was like, okay, you're going to be a secretary, you're going to be a teacher, right? I mean, it seems so archaic, but it really was kind of like that. But I was always very interested in science and STEM. Even though I struggled, I remember one time my dad, and it wasn't like we had a bunch of money, but my dad in New York bought a riding lawnmower. And he went to go play golf one day, and I was home alone. I think I was in the 6th grade, and I took his riding lawnmower apart because I wanted to see how it worked, and then I was going to put it back together again. And when he came home, I had all the parts laid out, and he was like, "What the hell have you done?" Now, and he was a good sport about it. I didn't get grounded. He was not happy about it because, of course, I couldn't figure out how to put it back together again. And it was just a, bunch of nuts and bolts. But I often think back to that experience, that if my parents had seen that, recognized that side of me that was inquisitive about design and building things and taking things apart, and maybe encouraging or exposing me to more opportunities around engineering, I think that would be cool. I'd love to be like an astronaut. I'd go to Mars tomorrow.
Even though you said you had struggles with math and reading, you wonder, is that what pushed you towards higher education?
I think it definitely pushed me towards being a teacher, right? That feeling, and public service. I was very passionate about human rights and education. I mean, my parents are both from Northern Ireland, from Belfast, and they're Catholics. And I would go over to Northern Ireland with my mom all the time. Went to school over there for a period of time in a Catholic school. And it was in the 70s, and the Troubles were a real thing. I mean, it was a hotbed. There was a civil war going on, basically. So I grew up very much with that political mindset, and that grew up going to protest marches, and it was during the hunger strikers, and the whole idea of what it means to be a patriot, because it's all in the eye of the beholder, right? So anyway, I think that molded a lot of what I look at. And so the political side there and the education piece, I think, because I did struggle and I wanted to be one of those teachers that helped that kid that was really struggling.
Okay. If you could have dinner with one historical figure that's part of STEM, who would it be?
Oh, Cochran. She was a firecracker, aviator early on, palled around with Chuck Yeager, very poor, grew up. She was tenacious as hell. She really didn't, it was tough. She had a tough life. She was selling cosmetics. It's a really funny story, but she would sell cosmetics, and she was quite the salesperson. And she figured she could sell more and get to more areas and expand her reach. She learned to fly, and she ended up being a pilot. She went into the service. She was just a firecracker. She was just a badass.
Interesting. Coolest aerospace innovation that you've recently come across?
Oh, autonomy. Autonomous air vehicles.
In what capacity?
Oh, air taxis, like, that the Jetsons will happen before we die. We will see flying vehicles. They're here.
Well, I'm still waiting for a package to be delivered to me by a drone. That will be cool.
Yeah. That means Amazon has a whole fleet.
Where? They're not in Palm Coast.
No. But all of these things are there. They're all there. And so the challenge is the FAA is trying to work out the airspace. Who flies what, where, and safely, right? But I mean, you look at places like Dubai, they have taxis, air taxis, and all the rest of it. In Orlando, they just built a vertiport. So the idea of vertiport, meaning that the air taxi, Airbus has one, and Joby has one. There's a few out there, and they just land in the vertiport, pick up their folks, and miss all that traffic and fly over to the Space Coast. And the goal is to create a triangle where the vehicles can really transport.
Are these air taxis like helicopters, or are they like drone-looking things?
Drone.
Wow.
They're like.
I didn't think there were vehicles out there that carry that type of weight.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. And the whole conversation around autopilot and autonomous vehicles, right? Flight vehicles, large scale. I mean, they're here, but they're going to require a pilot for probably for a while, for people's comfort level, psychological comfort level, right? But they're really not necessarily required, because the Airbus can fly autonomously.
Well, I think that
program it in.
I think the comfort level of an autonomous flying vehicle is probably after we get comfortable with like a car driving itself, like the Tesla.
We're getting there.
We're getting there, but
we're getting there.
I think about that, and I don't think I would ever allow a hands-off type thing, or go to sleep while the car is driving. I don't know if I could.
I don't think you should be falling asleep.
No,
right?
no. I mean,
but you're on the road right now with vehicles that are fully autonomous. Florida has, Florida was one of the first states to actually have rules of engagement for the highway system to allow for that to happen. But I will tell you this, that if you, somebody shared this analogy with me and I thought it was a good one. You think back to when they created, elevators, and what was in the elevator? There was a bellman in the elevator. People didn't get in and ride the elevator alone. They got in and told the bellman what floor to take me to, and he, put it on the 5th floor, and you went up together. And but there was always a bellman. There was an operator operating that elevator, and it took some time before people got comfortable getting in an elevator without that operator. It's going to be the same kind of thing, right? The elevators didn't fall. Nobody got hurt. The worst thing that could happen is, and I understand why the FAA is taking its time, because the minute something happens and someone either dies or gets hurt, that's it. It's going to set everything way back. So, but it's coming. I mean, they've said they're, I think 2025, they said they're going to have the rules out there.
What's your go-to motivational quote, or your favorite motivational quote?
So George Bernard Shaw has a quote, and I'm going to butcher it, but it's something about, while I have this time on earth, right? While I have this time to shine brightly, to shine as brightly as you can, to help others before passing that torch on to the next generation. And I think we all have a responsibility to do that. We've all got a designed purpose. God's given us all a purpose. Sometimes we can struggle to figure that purpose out. I'm 56. I'm still trying to figure that out. But while we're here, I think we have a responsibility to do the best we can with the time that we're given, but really contribute something, right? And then pass that on to the next generation.
Okay. Which city do you think is the STEM capital of the world?
Oh, that's a good one. Oh, I'm going to say Brevard County. And I mean, there's probably a few in Texas. And maybe I'm partial, right, with Brevard, because the Space Coast, I watched the Space Coast die when they pulled the funding from NASA, and they went through a massive reduction on the Space Coast. Companies closed up. There were thousands of jobs cuts. And I remember the school district, because I had friends who were on that school board. It was just devastating, the loss of population there. And the resurgence, it is phenomenal. The number of rockets that launch now compared we've never seen anything like it. And it's only going to get more intense as you've got the Artemis project with Mars. And I mean, there's talk now about going back to the moon. Can you imagine if we didn't give up on the space program and built on everything we knew when we did go to the moon, and where we'd be today? Ugh.
Well, there's aliens on the dark side of the moon. They told us not to come back.
Well, listen, I mean, I don't know. Did you guys watch any of the hearings?
Yes.
Just recently? Mm-hmm. I mean, of course we're not alone. Come on. Maybe we're the aliens.
Okay.
Right?
Well, maybe we've never been to the moon.
You saw that movie too?
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I'm only, honestly, with technology as fast as it's, with AI, the 3 major industries they say that are going to be impacted is healthcare, manufacturing, and aviation, and aerospace. So you're really, I think, going to see so many things come out of the space industry over the next, 5 to 10 years. I think it's going to be mind-blowing.
What is your favorite space movie or TV show?
Honestly, I liked Mars with what's his name? He's cute.
The movie or the TV show?
No, the movie.
Oh,
Matt.
Matt
Damon.
Damon.
Yeah, I thought that was neat. I like that. I like that movie. I thought that
Are
was
you a
really
Trekkie?
neat. Not really. No.
What is the one gadget or app you can't live without?
Well, now I would say it's probably ChatGTP, but what gadget?
Most people would say cell phone.
Yeah, I'm trying to balance my time on my cell phone, which is really challenging. But it is. I mean, if you think about the technology that is in the palm of your hand, it's pretty incredible.
Why don't you
what
just
can
get a
do.
flip phone if you're trying to manage your time on the phone?
Listen, do as I say, not as I do, right?
That goes for the chat GTP,
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's right.
You can't use it, but I use it all the time. All right. If you could teach one skill to each student you've had, what would it be?
Resiliency, to be tenacious, to not quit, not give up, to learn. I think we have it backwards sometimes. We need to embrace our mistakes and learn from them, right? The greatest lessons are from our failures. And we flip it around, right? We only celebrate when you
The
get
successes.
it right all the time.
Yeah, but you're right. We learn from the failures, but they're hard lessons.
But those are the most powerful and meaningful,
it's too bad
right?
it's actually that way.
It is. It is. But I think the reason I say resiliency and tenacious, right, to be tenacious, is because then if you fail, you just look at it as it's an opportunity to learn. It's a lesson. But you're right. From pain comes growth.
Yeah, I just tried Wendy's double bacon butter burger, and it got me really sick. So that was a lesson, a very painful lesson. I don't think I'll do that again.
No, but I'm glad you shared because I'll
you.
skip that.
You paid for it twice, huh?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. What is your favorite aerospace innovation of all time?
I got to say, it's the flying cars. I mean, it's the autonomous vehicles. It's the Jetsons, man. It's here. It's coming, right? I mean, I want to get in my little chopper outside and just pick up and go wherever I want to go.
You know, I'm surprised you didn't say.
Mm.
You didn't say the Musks. I think it's the one that can come back down and land autonomously.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot that part. It's the engine
rocket?
part.
Yeah, it's I mean, the technology.
My God, when I watched it, I'm like, how does that? And they landed it on a float in the middle of the ocean.
I know.
How did they do that?
But you know what? Talking about failure, have you ever watched
Oh, yeah.
the series of failures they went through
Yeah.
and the money each failure cost? I mean, that is, you want to talk about pain, you want to talk about but look at what they learned. If they gave up after the loss of the first or the second one, they wouldn't have gotten there.
There was a documentary on that, and he was on his last launch.
Yes,
And if he crashed that,
he was
over.
broke. He was bankrupt, I
Yeah.
think. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Weren't they still sending up rockets with that or things with that? Because originally, if you shot something up into the sky or to space, you would lose that booster anyways, I thought. So
Well, it's expensive, right, to create
Right.
those boosters. So every time they can bring any part of a rocket back, it
saves a ton of money. yes.
yeah, and time, right? Because you're not having to rebuild from scratch. So yeah, it's pretty mind blowing what's going on right now in the space world.
If you could meet any astronaut throughout history, who would it be? Initially the first thing that comes to mind is Sally Ride. And I hesitated because I was like, well, she never really got to be a full astronaut, right? But the idea that a teacher is just a common person like any of us, trained and prepared herself to go to space, is pretty amazing. And just tragically to have, lost her. Challenger?
Yeah. And the whole crew, right? And the Challenger. We're of that generation. We remember that.
Yeah.
But I found her to be inspirational.
I would pick the first person to do the first spacewalk.
Mm.
I have no idea who that is. It's a Russian. I have no idea.
Yeah, I can't.
It's not Yuri Gagarin. It's somebody else.
Yeah, no. Don't know.
What's the most surprising thing you've learned from your students over the years?
That what you say matters, and that they listen to every word you say. And if words really do matter. And you could say something either encouraging or not, and they will remember that. There's a group of students that I have maintained a relationship with. I had them in New York City, in Washington Heights, Harlem area, from 4th grade to 5th grade. And I did a theater arts program after school with them. So these were my babies. I had them from basically like 8 in the morning to 6 at night. And often on weekends I would hang out and take them bowling, or we, do different things. We have reconnected over Facebook I had 36 of them at that time. So a little over 20 of us have reconnected on Facebook. And I go back every 5 years or so for a mini reunion. And to listen to them share stories about that time we had together, I'm always struck with what they remember and what they recall. And it's words matter. How we treat people and what we say can either make a positive, lasting impression on people, or it can be the complete opposite.
Damaging.
Yeah, it really can.
So would you say coffee or tea when you're preparing your programs and your educational stuff?
Coffee.
Coffee, just a lot more.
I was raised on a lot of tea, but coffee.
Are you an Army brat?
Nope.
Okay. Where did you do your undergrad? You didn't mention that. It's not in your CV either.
I did my undergrad in New York at St. Thomas Aquinas College.
Okay.
In elementary education.
And CUNY is in New York as well.
CUNY, yep.
CUNY, I'm sorry.
That is in Harlem. City College is in Harlem.
Okay.
What book or resource would you recommend for aspiring professionals that want to get into the aerospace field?
Oh, geez. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, I would absolutely say I am not the aviation expert on my team, but I would say there are so many organizations. For example, if there are any girls or women who have young women, right, daughters, Women in Aviation is an incredible organization. And if they were interested, even an adult female who was interested in getting involved in aviation, I would go to the WIA website, WIA.org. Women in Aviation is a tremendous resource. There's so much material there and so many opportunities to participate. And the other thing is, if there are adults, young people interested in flight or aviation, check out the resources that the different airline companies have. Many of them, to deal with the crisis, have come up with their own training programs. Used to be you needed to have a 4-year degree to go into flight. That's not the case anymore. Many of the companies have waived that, and they've come up with a lot of their own training programs. So sometimes cost can be a factor. And the other opportunity is the military. If I had my life to do over again, I think I would have absolutely looked at like the Air Force or something like that. But the resources and the opportunities for young people in the military are incredible. I might wait right now with everything that's going on. Just hang tight for a while.
Yeah, we wanted to see how things kind of pan out in a couple of years.
See how things go with China. see what's going on with China. We'll see.
What's the coolest fact about unmanned aircraft, in your opinion?
Oh, man.
That people might not know.
I am totally failing at all of these. Let's see. A fun fact about drones.
Or the coolest or the most innovative.
You know, a lot of people think, when they think of drones, well, let me ask you guys. When you think of drones, what do you think about?
I think of many computer screens, somebody sitting there and actually controlling the flight, Well, obviously, autonomously.
Okay, so you're like more of a military application.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I mean, I've seen people drive. They have their own personal drones, and they have it looks like a phone on their.
Yep.
And they're controlling it
Yep.
like that. But I'm thinking of
Photography.
in the military.
Photography. A lot of people
Right.
think movies, photography, and whatnot. But the truth is, drones really are changing multiple industries. Precision agriculture right now with drones. So there are drones out there with multispectral cameras where you can map, say, a crop or a field, and that data that you receive back, it'll tell you where you've got a nutrient deficient. It will tell you where oversaturation is happening. It can tell you, a farmer, basically how to get a healthier crop, right? Rescue is huge. Bridge inspections, right? There's almost no industry that does not have an area where a drone pilot could be of benefit.
One that you
Firefighting.
I have one that you would
I
never
mean,
think of.
yeah.
Archaeology. I was just watching a documentary on how they're using drones to fly over the rainforest.
Yep.
And they have those saturation cameras where you can see through
Yep.
the canopy and see if there are some sort of archaeological
Yes.
site underneath it.
What the cameras can do today are incredible. The other one that I love that people are always kind of surprised about is animal conservation. They can use it for counting, animal conservation and whatnot. And so there really is. We have a lot of young people in high school that get their Part 107 and they start a business and make bank working for realtors, maybe, doing 3D, videos, going in and kind of,
Property shots. and
yeah,
everything.
they do a lot with that, or events, special events and whatnot. And that's kind of on the low end. But FPL is also hiring a ton of drone pilots to do line inspections. They do railroad inspections with drones. So you'd be surprised at how many industries actually utilize them.
So it sounds like it's a growing field.
Oh, for sure.
With a lot of opportunity.
Yes. Ton of opportunity.
What is the one thing you think people misunderstand about school boards?
Oh, I would say, well, I was going to say that it's political, but, unfortunately, I can't say that because it does feel like it's political sometimes. So I think people are surprised. People run for school board with one thing in mind, and they think it's about just advocating for kids but really truly being a public official, whether it's school board or anything else. I mean, I've had people walk right up to me in a restaurant when I'm with my family and interrupt dinner and tell me, this, that, and the other thing is wrong. And if I ask to speak to them at another time, they'll remind me that you work for me. I pay you. I'm having this conversation with you right now. You're my employee. So it can be a little jarring sometimes when somebody gets on a board and they don't realize that they are a public entity and that there are people that will treat you just like that. And so it can be a little intimidating. What was it several years ago when we had a meeting about one of the books that it was a hot topic. It was standing room only in our board chambers. We had men, we had the 3%ers there, we had the Proud Boys there in full military gear, balaclavas on, the whole 9 yards. I had to have a police escort home. So it can be a little intimidating, just to that forward facing where people can be, we had to clear the chambers. They thought, somebody had a firearm in the chambers. There's those moments where you realize you are, that the public very much demands, not all, and to a degree I understand, and that's what you sign up for, right? And that's their right to say whatever it is. It doesn't matter whether you agree with it or not, but the tone in which I've seen some elected officials be really disturbed by how aggressive folks can be sometimes.
Yeah, but considering what you guys get paid for that job, I would think that people would consider you employees, because I don't think too many people, other than a few jobs, would actually work for that kind of money. You're doing it for something else,
Yeah,
for sure. If you could implement one thing in every school today, what would it be?
If I could implement one thing in school every day, probably some sort of, hippy dippy mindfulness stuff. I don't know. The subject matters are covered, right? Curriculum and academics, kind of feel like that's covered.
We're going to teach them all Tai Chi, huh?
I don't, I think there's something to be said where students need the opportunity to de-stress and refocus and prepare their mind for learning. There's so many things going on with them. And every single kid is different. They all come with their own story, but some sort of way or opportunity to kind of ground everybody, to set the stage, to clear their mind, have them kind of focus and relax a little bit. I think would be really good for them.
Okay. Well, based on your comment there, I want to ask you this question. It's a little off of the questions, might be taking a little bit longer, but if you look at Asia, where they have like really crazy schedules and a lot of content, then you look at Europe, where they take a lot of time off, and then you look at America, where it's somewhere in between. What do you think is the best system for school age kids and college age kids?
Well, honestly, if you think about it, we still have a school schedule and a school calendar that is built around, the reason we have the summers off, it was built around an agricultural calendar, and it hasn't changed. And so, looking at whether you look at year round, where you have breaks in between, you look at trimesters, where you have some breaks in between. But a lot of times people will say, oh, China's leading the way and eating our lunch and all the rest of it. Well, China also has one of the highest suicide rates among young people, right? So what do you want? There's got to be a trade-off, right? Finland historically is always leading the way in academic achievement. But if you look at the population, it's not a very diverse population. And in America, we educate everybody. All students are included in our education system. So I think eventually our calendar has to be addressed, right? If you think about the rules and the regs, the regulations, the laws, I mean, my God, just the 70s alone loaded, schools up with laws that are required to teach this, laws that are required to teach that. And not 1 minute's been added to the day, right? I mean, it is there's literally a laundry list, probably as long as I am tall, of all of the statute rules and regs that are mandated by schools to do. And not one single day or minute has been added to the school day.
Okay, well, if you had a website or a social media link that somebody wanted to contact you at, what would it be?
I just converted my school board Facebook page. It is Colleen Conklin Education News. So if they search for that, they'd find that. And I believe on Twitter, I am a Grom's mom, or maybe I've changed that now because my kids are not Groms anymore. But search my name, Colleen Conklin, at Twitter and LinkedIn.
Okay.
Great opportunity. But, being public, just Google my name. You'll find all my contact information.
That's how I did it.
Yeah, it's there.
Well, I wanted to thank you for coming on the show. or the podcast, sharing your story with us, sharing your adventure from being an educator to a ex-school board member to be an executive director. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This was fun.
You're welcome.
Great group.
If you liked the content today, our dive into aerospace education in the aerospace industry, remember to like, share, and subscribe.